Welcome to the Explainer. Now, if you're studying for your CA exams, you know some topics can be, well, a bit of a grind. But today, we're diving into one of the big ones: mergers, acquisitions, and corporate restructuring. And trust me, this isn't just about what's in the textbook. This is about understanding the high-stakes chess game that shapes the business world.
So, how are we going to tackle this beast? We've broken it down into 4 parts. First up, the ambition. Why do companies even bother with these huge deals? Then we'll get into the playbook, the nuts and bolts of how these things actually happen. After that, things get dramatic on the battleground of hostile takeovers. And finally, we'll get real about the risks and alternatives, because spoiler alert, a lot of these deals don't end well. Ready? Let's get into it.
All right, let's start with the absolute basics. Why? I mean, really, why go through all the trouble of merging with or buying another company? It all boils down to one simple, fundamental goal: the search for more value. But what that means, well, that's where it gets complicated.
And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, this isn't a niche topic. This is a massive, multi-billion-dollar game. As a future chartered accountant, you're not just going to be reading about this stuff. You'll be the one in the boardroom, advising on the deals, making sure the numbers actually work. The stakes are incredibly high.
So what is corporate restructuring anyway? You know, the easiest way to think about it is like renovating a house. Sometimes you just need a fresh coat of paint. That's a small internal tweak. But sometimes you decide to buy the house next door and knock down the wall between them. That's a merger or acquisition. It's all about making the company bigger, better, and ready for whatever's coming next.
And this brings us to the magic word you hear in every single deal: synergy. Synergy. It's this beautiful idea that 1 + 1 can equal 3. It's the core belief that by putting 2 companies together, you'll create something far more valuable than the 2 parts were on their own. It's a really powerful concept, but it's also incredibly easy to get wrong.
And if you're going to remember one thing for your exams, make it this equation. This is the ultimate test. Does the value of the combined company, AB, truly exceed the value of A plus the value of B? If the answer is no, then all you've really done is create a bigger, more complicated company for no good reason. Your job as the CAO is to be the skeptic in the room, making sure this formula holds true.
Now, synergy isn't the whole story. Let's be honest. Sometimes the reasons are a lot simpler. Sometimes it's just about growing faster than you could on your own, or it's about buying your biggest competitor to dominate the market. And yep, sometimes it's about clever financial engineering to get a nice tax break. These are the real-world drivers you'll see time and time again.
Okay, so we've covered the why. Now let's get into the how. How do these massive deals actually get put together? What are the different strategies companies use? This is where we get into the playbook.
First things first, a quick vocabulary lesson. That's super important. People use merger and acquisition interchangeably, but they're not the same. A merger, or what we call an amalgamation in India, is like a marriage. 2 companies become one single new entity. An acquisition is different. It's more like, well, one company buys the other, but the one that was bought can still exist as its own company. It's a subtle but critical difference.
So these deals come in 3 main flavors. You've got your horizontal merger, where you buy a direct competitor. Then there's the vertical merger, where you buy a supplier or a customer to control more of the supply chain. And then you have the conglomerate merger, which is when a company buys another business that's in a completely different field. Each one has its own logic, its own risks, and its own rewards.
And look, this isn't just academic theory. Think about it. When Airtel bought Loop Mobile, what were they really buying? Market share. Plain and simple. When Flipkart bought Myntra, they weren't just buying a website. They were buying immediate expertise in fashion e-commerce. Every major deal you read about has a clear strategic why behind it. Okay, but what happens when a company wants to buy another one and the target says, "No thanks"? Well, that's when things can get nasty. It's called a hostile takeover, and it turns the world of corporate finance into an all-out battleground.
So, if you're under attack, what do? Well, you've got a whole arsenal of defenses with some pretty wild names. You can swallow a poison pill to make your company too toxic to acquire. You can look for a white knight, a friendly company to swoop in and save you. Or, my personal favorite, you can pull a Pac-Man defense and try to acquire the company that's trying to acquire you. It's wild stuff. It's like a blockbuster movie, just with spreadsheets.
But here's the crucial dose of reality. For all the exciting strategies and big money moves, most of the time, these deals just don't work out. The track record for mergers and acquisitions is, frankly, terrible. So that brings up the big question. If they fail so often, why do companies keep trying?
Because sometimes the smartest move isn't getting bigger at all. It's getting smaller. You can do a sell-off, which is like pruning a tree. You cut off the unproductive branches so the main tree can thrive. Or you can do a spin-off, where you take one of those healthy branches, plant it separately, and let it grow into its own strong tree. Getting smaller can be an incredibly powerful way to create value.
And if you're not convinced, just look at this number, 61%. According to one major study, that's the failure rate. Think about that. You'd have better odds just flipping a coin than the average CEO has of making an acquisition successful. So, why? What is going so wrong?
Well, it usually comes down to a few very human failings. First, you have ego, the deal fever, where a CEO just has to win, so they overpay. Then there's fantasy. They fall in love with the idea of synergy and believe in numbers that just aren't realistic. But the biggest reason? People. They completely forget that you're not just merging balance sheets, you're trying to merge two completely different human cultures, and that is incredibly hard to do.
And so, that leaves us right here with the strategist's ultimate dilemma. On the one hand, you have the potential for massive reward, for creating incredible value through synergy. But on the other, you have this enormous risk of failure. Is the potential prize worth the very real danger? That's the question you're going to have to think about, not just for the exam, but for your entire career as a financial professional.